Hey, and good morning, everyone.
Hello.
Morning.
Hey, Marianne, Megan, Justin, thanks for joining me today on our stream, concluding our compliance series. It's kind of putting it all together as building a roadmap to compliance for your business. So kind of taking all the lessons learned and making this something useful and putting it together. So before we dive into our content today, I just want to say thank you to everyone who watches our streams and comments, sends us emails and feedback on social. It's really great. We have a YouTube channel. Definitely check it out. We're here every Thursday at 10:30. We do it at thevaliantway.com/live. And also, if you take a look at that, we also have it all digested out in our monthly email digest, thevaliantway.com/newsletter. Check it out. And today's actually really great, and I'm excited. We did a stream last week about data privacy, and but today is actually Data Privacy Day. Last week we went through exactly. So we hope that was a useful stream. Taught you a lot about some of the origins of data privacy and the National Cybersecurity Alliance and Privacy Day and how it started out in the early '80s, which means that this topic is not new, but it's just even more important today with our interconnected lives. So if you have a chance, check out National Cybersecurity Alliance, staysafeonline.org. A lot of great content on there. And then we'll start kicking into our roadmap. But before we do a roadmap things, I'm going to hand it over to Marianne for her today's Tech Bite.
Yeah, so today I'm going to talk about something that actually kind of just popped up for me in OneDrive and SharePoint. And it's that there's a new button in SharePoint right next to the sync icon that says create a shortcut to OneDrive. So, I actually even had someone write in about this, and I was looking at it and like, what's the difference? What does this do? What's the use case? So basically what it does is exactly what it sounds like. It's going to take that whatever folder you choose, make a shortcut in your OneDrive so it's more easily accessible for the various things you want to do. So I want to start by showing you how to do it. Let me just quickly share my screen. Sorry, just give me 1 second. Gotta bring that up. If you sing, it helps. So, so here's an image of my OneDrive, my SharePoint, and right here at the top. So it's going to be. I'm going to select a folder. I'm going to take this stock images one from my picks in my training, and let me just get rid of both selected stock images, and then I'm going to see this add shortcut to OneDrive button. So it's really easy. You just add it. It takes a second. And then let me bring up my, if I open my OneDrive, it's going to be right there. So what this is it's exactly what it says. It's a shortcut, so I can access these images from here, however I want to do that. And part of the reason why this is useful. So if you're in your OneDrive, moving files and moving folders, is a bit of a process. You have to do the ... You have to click move to, you have to navigate to it. But if it's right here, you can just drag and drop. I can throw this in there and it'll move it straight into that file, that folder. Another use is if you do have it synced, you can access it a little bit better. If you have your OneDrive synced to your computer, you can access it a little bit quicker through the OneDrive, navigation. So I can just go to OneDrive to stock images instead of going through, downloading sync this one folder, sync something else, which I think it just makes it a little bit more convenient. And actually the most convenient thing, which I've done, is because this is now in my OneDrive, it's much more convenient for me to upload pictures from my phone. Because before, the SharePoint application only lets you upload one picture at a time, but the OneDrive application lets you do multiple. So having this here is really useful because I can just open OneDrive and navigate straight to this folder. I don't have to then find my team shares, then find my training SharePoint site, then find the folder within the folder that I want to put this in. I can just very easily click a few buttons, upload straight to here. So I did find this really helpful. It depends on what your workflow is, but I really think it's actually just a really neat thing that, I don't know, it just popped up for me, being that like it's fairly new and pretty cool.
That's awesome, Marianne. Thank you. That's super useful. Sometimes these little shortcuts. I was just thinking out loud, and some of these little shortcuts can save you so much time in the day. The repetitive clicking and
Yeah.
searching and hunting, just all of it, and
Yeah, definitely.
the continuous improvement and new features being released constantly. It's really hard to kind of stay on top of it. So awesome, that's great. So back to compliance, a very exciting topic, but it's really important, and it's one that has a really far-ranging repercussions. And we think it's such a critical thing. This for so many different reasons. If you're a business, if you're collecting personal information, you have a legal obligation. It's from your staff, for your customers, and for your business. So there's not a ton of debate, not a lot of like argument. Like, hey, we don't need to do that. It's more a matter of like, how far should you go? How should you build your program out? And how can you continuously improve and test it? But I think one thing that's really important is that privacy is a good thing for everybody, right? If everyone has an ability to control their data and control their how they appear online or where they go, it has it's net positive for everyone, and it's just good business. So what we want to do is start talking about our data compliance checklist, and let's just go over some of the sections of it. So JP, where would you start? I mean, you do a lot with customers on this, and you kind of are a go-to person. What do you start on this?
Sure. So the first place to start is definitely getting a handle on what information you have, and the best way to do that is by conducting an information audit.
Right.
This is going to be something that you'll want to usually work with a third party to help you understand your data process, how you store things, where things are, to kind of bring a fresh set of eyes into it. But you'll also need to look through the data that you have and understand what that information is, what it means for your business, what's
Right.
important, what isn't, how you classify things. And you may not have a formal classification system yet, but at least on some level, you have an idea of, these are the accounting files, and these are important for the
Right.
accounting team, but I really don't want the other teams to be able to look at that information. And so you really want to get a handle on those sorts of things, what information you have, who has access to what, and those sorts of pieces.
Right. Like what's allowed to be moved around, what's allowed to be mobile, or what should stay in the computer. Marianne, where else did you go from there, Marianne?
Well, actually, yeah, related to that is, knowing what you said, knowing what information you have, but knowing what information you don't need to be collecting, and don't collect it. I mean, the best way to be privacy compliant is to not have private information. So as much as you can reduce that, do that. So yeah, we talk about justifying your data processing activities. So if you're collecting data that you don't need, sometimes you need the information, obviously, it's useful information. But if you don't, maybe think about, you don't have to worry as much about storing if you can prevent yourself from collecting that.
Right.
And I see that all the time. People are just like, oh yeah, I've got all this information. And they go, wait, I don't need to use this person's IP address because they visited my website, or, so that you don't necessarily need all the information. Yeah. So it's a good thing to, when you're out doing that evaluation, is to see what are you collecting that you don't really need.
Yeah, no one really needs to have everyone's date of birth if you're just signing up for T-shirts or something like that. You see that all the time. And Megan, you go to a lot of websites. What do you see when you're out there just kind of surfing through the web and doing research?
Well, I think as far as data goes, I think it's super important to be really transparent in your privacy policy about the information and the data you are processing, so that your prospects know what data you're collecting and what you're doing with that data. And then they also know what privacy means to your business and how you maintain the privacy of others. So I guess like on websites, it's how they state their privacy policy, and it's important for your business to see that your privacy policy that you have for everyone else to see actually reflects the practices you're putting in place, because you don't want to say you're doing something you're not doing. And a lot of people say very good things and aren't following up, but I think having at least the intention in the privacy policy can guide you in everything that Justin and Marianne have said about us.
Yeah, it's really true. A good starting point is putting together a written policy, which is kind of almost a first step in almost any cybersecurity work or any kind of improvements, is like, is this right what you think it should be? And we have a pretty useful checklist that you can start with. If you take a look at it, even just to spark the conversation and what has to get done to do it. It's so important, and it's a good place to get started from. So I think it's just a great way to work. So, beyond just doing, all right, so great, we have a policy, a checklist, part of this compliance thing is not only just the data privacy, but if something bad happens, right? Like, what do you do? It's kind of tying the other side of it is like, hey, everything's kind of working, we just want to do this. But then part of it, I think, is starting to do, and they're kind of mixing two things here, but they're kind of really interrelated, is how do you prepare? What's the process? I think we all agree that breaches are bad. Everyone happens all the time. I mean, solar wind.
But it happens.
Exactly. Yeah. It's going to happen, right, Justin?
I think not the if it happens, it's the when it happens.
Right.
Just like you have to assume that at some point there will be a data breach. You'll be involved in a data breach, either as somebody that has data that gets breached or somebody whose information got breached. It's just the fact of the world that we live in. It's like preparing for a car accident. You kind of just assume that at some point you'll be involved in one. To what degree is different, but it's just something that you make sure that you put things in place to take care of if anything happens or when it happens, and you have a plan for what's going to happen.
Right.
And that's, I think, the big part is building that plan and having that plan be part of your cybersecurity policy, so that knowing what you need to do when there is a data breach, so that you're not trying to figure it out, you're enacting something that happens.
Right. I think one good example is to perform almost like a tabletop exercise, even if it's the brief thing. I mean, I think we have a good example internally for us as a company is we did a very similar thing before COVID, right? We sat and kind of pre-gamed out what would happen, and actually, Jess, if you want to give some insight into that,
I mean, we kind of went through. We started with the, and actually, I guess it was about a year ago when the news was first coming out. We were like, okay, let's figure out what's going to happen. If this happens, let's do this. If this happens, let's do this. And we took it all the way to the point of, well, if the infrastructure is gone, like power got shut off and there's no water, like, we're probably not going to be providing service to people. But that is an important piece of it, is being able to not necessarily plan for every contingency and enact it, but to have a plan for, like, okay, well, if it reaches this point, this is where we're going to stop. And as far as we can go. And for a data breach, building a plan like that, it does, like, when you do that tabletop exercise, it does involve a lot of different moving parts, and so you do want to bring together a full internal team that's going to help you with that exercise, run that plan, and be able to test pieces of it regularly. With that team, you want to have your department heads or your key decision makers, but you also really want to include your legal counsel in at least part of the decision making process, if not the whole tabletop exercise, at least to run things by. And part of that is because there are some differing regulations depending on where you are, what kind of business you're in, and really your legal counsel are the experts in that, so you want to leverage them to help you with that.
Yeah, it's important to know your legal responsibilities, not just what's the PR fix that we're going to do for this.
Yeah, it's not all crisis, right? There's other impacts that could occur or will occur. So
and we talked a bit about like the Shield Act and other regulations in some of our previous streams. So if you're more interested in some of those legal requirements, you can check those out.
Exactly.
And then in addition to your internal team, you want to identify any third parties that you're going to work with, either third parties that you'll have to notify, which could be the clients or the individuals that are involved in a breach, or third parties that you work with to help build your systems like an IT partner, or even if you're using a third-party service to store your data,
Mhm.
understanding that role in a potential breach. And with that in mind, you want to build out a method to communicate what has happened to the appropriate people. And that could be as simple as having a mailing list ready to go, having like, oh, we're just going to reach out to our clients by phone and call people, or whatever that process is. You want to have that defined and built out so that when it comes time to notify, you're not scrambling to figure it out. You're more enacting that in place.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And
exactly.
updating that list as well. The fire safety people, doesn't matter if you're churning employees, but at the same time, if you're changing who your legal counsel is, make sure that you
Mhm.
update that list.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think this is a good example of tying into a larger strategy of business continuity, which is
Mhm.
not necessarily an IT function, but a business operations function that is
Yeah, absolutely.
across all disciplines, from HR to operations to finance, that sort of thing. So it's really important, and I think this is definitely one of the pieces that cross the disciplines a lot. The incident response.
Mhm.
So, and once again, we're just scratching the surface here. We're just giving people this kind of a place to start. I mean, this is risk and risk management and compliance is its own art and science and discipline. So, but I think the issue is that every small business now has to really take stock of these changes in the environments, changes in the business, the sector of how many small businesses are now being targeted, and how it's downstreaming to them, and how
Mhm.
how big or larger organizations are downstream risk to smaller organizations. So I
Mhm.
think it's something to always keep in mind that you have to be mindful of your own self at all times. So I don't know, guys. I think we have so much information on compliance. What do you think? Anything else you want to add today or throw in there?
The last piece I do
Oh,
want to
yeah.
add for building your plan is to make sure that in addition to your customers, you also work on informing your employees on
That's
what's
a
going
great one. That's a great one. Yeah,
and
it's
that's
true.
having some kind of training so that your employees know at least how to respond to a breach. Because if
Mhm.
Mhm.
somebody doesn't know any better, they may think that, oh, I should not tell anyone about this, as opposed to I need to tell somebody right away about
Yeah.
this. And
Sure.
That's a,
that's the important
Uh,
piece to get across to them.
Accidentally CC all the clients instead of BCCing them. What's
Yeah.
the next steps for that?
Yeah.
right.
And you'll hope that your employee isn't just, let's just pretend it didn't happen, because you
Yeah.
might
Mhm.
actually have those obligations, obviously to your clients, but there might even be legal obligations that need to be discussed higher up. So
Mhm.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. You want to you want to have a culture of not uh, being being upfront about it and having that honestly. This being like zero blame kind of
Mhm.
environment where it's
Yep.
like, hey, something bad happened, we got to find it. So
Yeah.
this is actually a really great place. If you want to look, we have a new email digest that throws it all together, or not. It's just a page. Check it out. We have it here. It really kind of puts it all together
Mhm.
into one single place. You can read all of the content that we put together on this. So, all right, this is great stuff. Thanks, Matt, for putting that up there. It's really been a really cool segment. And quite honestly, we're wrapping it up.
Mhm.
And I don't know if we're getting ahead of ourselves here, Matt. Sorry about that. Here's a special image for us. I don't know if it's supposed to be, but we'll see. It is our final segment in the compliance. We spent the entire month really putting together a bunch of content around compliance, privacy, and how it impacts business owners, employees, individuals, how it's really broad.
Mhm.
Um, we just want to say thank you to National Cybersecurity Alliance for all the work they've been doing in this space and for being a great partner. We're really excited to work with them on an ongoing basis. And actually, I'm really psyched to talk about our next segment. Is one that we touched on in the past, but now we're going to a 4-segment deep dive into the modern workplace.
Mhm.
We have a bunch of content together here. Modern workplace defined, effective teams meetings, lightweight project management, and communications for mobile workforces. We think this is going to be a really great way of utilizing tools that you may already have in your business that may not deployed or may not partially deployed. And we're excited to just go through it with everyone. So if anyone has any questions about compliance, or if you need any curiosities, please feel free to submit a question. Let us know we're here. We like working with customers on this. We think it's such an important thing. We want to see people be safe and sound. And with that, send us a message on social. We'd love to hear from everyone. All right. Well, thanks everyone. Have a great day, and talk to you all soon. All right.
Yep.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.